Please help me welcome J. Lauren Norris.
What's holding you back from success? Is it lies or is it lazy? Or maybe it's both. Today I want to talk about, in this episode, we're going to talk about the 6 R's of the motivation cycle. The personal motivation cycle. How do you motivate you? That's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Leading Leaders. Stay tuned.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.
I'm J. Lauren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, and I, like many other people, have struggled with the idea of success almost as much as I've struggled trying to achieve success. Now, the idea of success has its own barriers. It has its own, for lack of a better term, mythology. One of the ways that you hear that expressed is John Maxwell says, I often have people that come to me, they see the large audience, they see the perceived value of what I'm earning doing what I do, and they say to me, I want to do what you do. And I always ask the same question. Are you willing to do what I did so you can do what I do? That's the question that stops most people. Because most people have this perception in their brain that either success is for the lucky, or success was handed down to you from your lineage, from your parents and grandparents, or success is something that only happens to the selected few and it's not for everyone. And what if I told you all of those are lies, and many of those lies are being told by you, by me, to me, about me, and because those lies are perpetuated, they become what we call a deeply held belief, and those deeply held beliefs, well, they craft the vision of what our future is going to be. We don't see ourselves as successful, and so we don't achieve that success. And those lies kind of create another cycle. And that cycle looks like the quit cycle, which is what we talked about in the last episode. And if you're not familiar with the quit cycle, you're going to have to go back to it. There's 4 stages in the quit cycle. You fight for what you want, and then you cry because you didn't get it. And then you concede, well, I didn't really want it in the first place. And then you get really busy convincing yourself, I never really wanted it. I didn't want success. I didn't want to be rich like those rich people, because who wants to be like them? And so this self-perpetuating list of lies becomes the anchor for the laziness that causes you to look at success and go, it's just not worth it. It's not worth being disliked. It's not worth driving one of those kind of cars or being that kind of people. It's not really for me anyway. I wasn't born into that. I wasn't born with the silver spoon in my... You hear the stories that are being perpetuated in that? We all have those stories, but some people are fortunate enough that early in their life they break the habit of those stories, or they tell a different story. Some people, it doesn't happen early in life. It takes a little longer. In fact, what I'm going to teach you today about the 6 R's of personal motivation was a revelation that came to me while I was reading a book. Now, I extrapolated what I'm about to explain to you out of a couple of paragraphs from this book, The 10X Rule by Grant Cardone. As you can imagine, his worldview and mine are a little bit different, and therefore there are some things that he teaches that I'm like, I'm not sure about that. But I do have to be honest and say, if at roughly the same age, we're almost exactly the same age, Grant and I, and he's had some bigger failures in life than I have because of the 10X Rule. What I mean by that is, he has tried things that I would have never tried. He's done things that I have never done. He has many more zeros behind his net worth than I do for that reason, and because of that cause. And so I have to stop and think that, well, we have some differences of opinion and some differences of ideas, and given the same thoughts and scenarios, we would probably come to some drastically different conclusions. And then I have to ask, is one better than the other? Is one right and is one wrong? And what kind of fool would I be to not at least consider some of the notions that have caused him to do differently than I have? I think if we're honest with ourselves, all of us, at whatever station in life, financially, educationally, income-wise, demographically. If we can't ask the question, what did they do to get to where they are, if where they are is different than where I am? Good, bad, or otherwise, better, more profitable, more successful, more well-known. Am I willing to do what they did so I can do what they do? Is that save more money? Is that make more money? Is that close more sales? Is that create new products? Is that innovate something else? Whatever it is that they've done, whoever they is in your world, maybe they have a couple of doctorate degrees. Maybe they have a house full of children. Maybe they built a house on the golf course, or they bought a cabin in the woods. Whatever they did that you look at and go, well, they're different than me. Why? If you're willing at least to ask that question, to realize that there's a significant difference, and it's an option. It's a choice that they made that you didn't. Now, maybe the they that you're analyzing are the homeless. Maybe the they that you're analyzing are of a different faith or a different education background. Maybe they come from a different part of the world, but the way they live their life is different than the way you live your life, and that on its own is worth the observation and the question, am I doing everything I can to bring success into my life as an obligation for future generations? And if the answer to that question is no, then maybe you should analyze, what could I be doing differently? They chose a different path, whoever they are. They chose a different way of doing it. That's the direction with which I went into the 10X rules and said, well, what does he know that I don't know? Is it people? Is it places? Is it processes? Is it systems? Is it mindset that I could adopt that would change my station in life? Well, of course, he did the Undercover Billionaire and took away all of his own list of contacts, took away all of his business, took all the money out of his pocket, and threw him in a place he'd never been before, where he knew no one, disguised himself, and nobody knew who he was. And in a matter of 90 days, built a $5 million business. Why? Well, because just like the laws of gravity and the laws of metabolism, there are things in our universe that, well, they just work every time, everywhere. Gravity doesn't care if you're in Indiana or Idaho or India. Gravity is, well, it's gravity. On this planet, it's 32 feet per second in a vacuum. That's the same everywhere for everyone of every belief. There are laws of systems that we can learn. And so I picked up the 10X rule and I thought, well, what does a billionaire know that I don't? And then I read these two paragraphs on page 28 in the 10X rules. I read these the day after New Year. I'm going to share these two paragraphs with you real quick, and then I'm going to dive into the 6 R's that I discovered comparing his notes against my own way of thinking. And I think those 6 R's are going to be powerful for you as you begin to see a new process for your own internal personal motivation cycle. Here's what Grant Cardone says, 10X rule, page 28. Quit lying to yourself. There you go. That's it. That's all. No. It's fairly common for people who don't get what they want to provide justifications and even lie to themselves by minimizing how valuable success is to them. Have you ever lied to yourself about how valuable success is? It's easy to spot this trend in our society today with entire demographics and population segments. You can read it in books, hear it in church, see it promoted in schools. Children who can't get what they want will fight for a little while, cry for a bit, and then convince themselves they never wanted it in the first place. That's what I call the quit cycle. It's entirely okay to admit that you wanted something that didn't come to fruition. In fact, it is the only thing that will help you eventually reach your goal. Hold on. That's a big deal. Despite the obstacles that you will encounter along the way, even the most fortunate and well-connected people among us must do something to put themselves in the right places at the right time in front of the right people. As I mentioned at the end of the previous chapter, luck is just one of the byproducts of those who take the most action. Let me say that again. Luck is the byproduct of those who take the most action. The The reason why successful people seem lucky is because success naturally follows and allows for more success. People create magical momentum by reaching their goals, which compels them to set and eventually reach even loftier goals. Unless you're privy to the action, you don't see or hear about the number of times the successful went for it and failed. And all the world pays attention only when they're winning. Sound familiar? Colonel Sanders, who made Kentucky Fried Chicken famous, pitched his idea more than 80 times before they bought the concept. And you might be fascinated to know that not only did he pitch it 80 times before anybody heard it and took action on it, but he was over 60 years old when that happened. You think those 80 times came easy? No, there was a lot of failure. There was probably a lot of fight for it, cry when you missed it, concede that you didn't want it, and then convince yourself you never wanted it in the first place. In those 80 attempts to build a successful franchise. And somewhere along the way, he just said, I refuse to quit again. I'm going to keep trying. 80 times he continued trying. So here are the 6 R's that I want you to sit with for a minute. I want you to ask yourself, if you're in the motivation path or the quit path, are you in the motivation cycle or the quit cycle? Which one of those is more likely your mindset? Now, I'll tell you, there's going to be a place in this where you might begin to click, especially if you've listened to the podcast on the quit cycle. You might begin to click and realize that's the divergence. That's the place where I can go one way or the other, where I have to decide which of these two I'm going to do. And at that moment, you will decide whether you quit or you stay motivated to go after it again, begin to apply the 10X rule, and push even harder. The first of the 6 R's in the personal motivation cycle is realize. You've got to allow yourself to become aware that that thing that I wanted, that goal that I set, I missed it. I just missed it. Now, whether you missed it by a little or you missed it by a lot, you missed it because you didn't try hard enough or you didn't invest enough or you didn't stay at it long enough, whatever the reason is that you missed it, you've got to come to the conclusion, I didn't get it. Maybe it was outside circumstances. Maybe it was, I don't know, a global pandemic that shut down your business 3 days after you invested everything in it. Maybe it was your new venture came headlong into a new law that didn't exist when you started the business and now it does, and it changes everything. But you've got to come to the place to realize that I've missed my goal. I say that because there are a whole lot of people that they trudge along chasing this mythical, mysterious goal, not realizing that the path that they're on is leading them the wrong direction. There's a crazy country song that talks about how a guy used to take care of the guard dog at the prison. And part of the way he would do that is he would take him out of the prison, walk him out in the woods, and he would always take him in a certain direction. And then he had somebody bring another female that was in heat to that same location. And when they opened the gates and he made his prison break, that dog went right where that dog was. They were on the wrong trail. Everybody was following the dog and the guy was running the other direction. Is your success like that? Is the goal that you're trying to achieve going the opposite direction of you? At what point will you realize I'm going the wrong way? That's like getting on the highway and missing your exit ramp and thinking, well, if I just keep driving long enough, I'll get to the same place anyway. No. If you don't realize that you've missed your goal, you're going to spend a whole lot more time trudging on instead of redirecting and recalculating. Even your GPS knows that. If you pass the exit, it begins immediately to recalculate, to tell you how to get back to that turn. Sometimes it'll just tell you, you got to make a U-turn from here. Or it'll tell you, look, return to the course. Yeah, you can't get there the way you're going. And sometimes it'll give you a new alternate route, but it's going to take longer. It's going to take you through more traffic. It's going to take you further miles. You've got to realize you've missed your goal, or you can't make a motivational move to continue operating. If you don't realize it, you're just headed off a cliff. The next is you've got to resolve yourself. So you've got to realize, then you've got to resolve. What is the resolve? That's the commitment to say, okay, I missed my goal, but I'm not going to fall into the quit cycle and just give up. Yes, I missed it. I wanted to reach this ideal weight. I wanted to reach this ideal income. I wanted to finish my classes and get my degree or my diploma by this date, and I didn't. Do I file an extension? Do I start all over? Yes. Resolve says, just because I missed that goal, that target, that date, I'm not done. I don't give up just because I missed that target. I don't look at it and go, well, I should have never tried in the first place. No, resolve says, I'm committed to this. I'm digging in a little deeper. I'm going to press a little harder. I'm going to work a little longer, even if it means I'm tired, even if it means I have to make sacrifices. I refuse to quit. And so we go from realizing that we missed the goal to the resolve that we will stay committed to that goal. Next, we have to restate. Now, if you haven't caught it yet, this is the divergent part of the path. Because in the quit cycle, we realize, we missed it. I mean, we try, we fight for it, and it doesn't work, and we cry over it because we didn't get it. And then the next, we concede. That's the decision. Was it resolve or was it conceding? But the fatal blow to your success is in the restate. You're either going to realize, resolve, and restate. Listen, I know I missed this goal. I'm going to restate what that goal is. I'm going to push a little harder for a little longer. Maybe I need to change the date. Maybe I need to change the parameters. Maybe I need to revoice that goal. Maybe I need to remind myself why I set that goal in the first place. Why did I even want to achieve that to begin with? We've got to learn from the experience of the failure. And we've got to state it to ourselves. Not that, well, I never wanted that success in the first place, but instead to say, here's what I learned from that failure. Here's what I can do differently because of that failure. Here's how I will address that. It's a learning skill set. It's an opportunity to say, like Colonel Sanders, on time number 68, I'm not done yet. I failed 68 times, and I'm not done yet. I believe I can still accomplish this. And even if my life is spent in the endeavor to accomplish, even if I don't actually accomplish it, that endeavor gives me purpose. Now, if you can state your life that way, if you can restate again and again that I am determined, I am convinced that this goal is worthwhile and I will pursue it, even if I don't achieve it in my lifetime, having pursued it is a purpose worth fighting for. You may have to completely rewrite your goals to come to that conclusion, to reach that point. But if you can restate your process, restate what you've learned in the failure, restate all the things that are going to make your next effort better, you've got a greater chance of success. And instead of looking at yourself and your circumstances as failure, you look at them as one step closer to success. Restart. You've realized it, you've resolved it, you've restated your purpose, your intention, and your commitment. Now you got to restart. Well, what does that mean? Well, that's where you take that full assessment of your restating and you say, okay, so I tried to do it this way. I tried it with these resources, with these connections, with these relationships on this timeline. I wanted to get my degree by the end of X number of months, but here I am at that time frame and I'm not done yet. So maybe I need to extend my time. Maybe I need to say, well, I've been studying an hour a day. Maybe I need to make that 2 hours a day. I need to redouble my effort. I need to start again. I need to restart what I was doing with a new kind of plan, a new vigor. I've got to get back at this, but I've got to do it better than I did last time. I've got to work harder than I did last time. One of the things consistent in the 10X rules is that idea of setting that parameter and knowing that, as with many things, if you set a goal to reach 10 new sales, as an example, and you miss the 10 sales and you only have 5, well, 5's a disappointment against 10. That's justifiable. It's understandable you're going to be frustrated because you only got 50% of your goal. Here's where the problem lies. What if survivability was 6 sales? What if missing that goal from 10 to 5 isn't just a failure of, well, I didn't reach the goal I set. It's now I'm bankrupt, I'm out of business, and I'm homeless. What if you had instead set your goal at 15 or 25 or 50? According to the 10X rule, whatever it is that you've established as your goal right now, just go ahead and 10X that goal. Because if you'd set your goal at 100 sales instead of 10, and you'd miss that by 50%, you'd still be at 50, not 5. The question is, are you willing to do what they do? Are you willing to do what they did so you can do what they do? Are you willing to work those long hours, get up early, stay up late, put in the extra time, burn the candle at both ends? Are you willing to do that? Then restart. And if you're not willing to do that, then your restatement is probably convincing you that success wasn't really for me anyway. That's a decision only you can make. No one can or will make it for you. It's on you. But if you have realized and you have resolved and you have restated and you have restarted, next you have to reach. And here's the hard part about reaching. A lot of us, let's say we set that goal for 10 new sales and we got 11 sales. How many of us would just kick back and say, look, I've reached my goal. I'm done. That's it. I got it. Yay. Because that goal is probably not a lifetime goal, right? It's a weekly goal or a monthly goal, maybe a quarterly goal. But you got 10 or 11 sales. Yay. But those are not going to carry you for the rest of your life. You got to go get 10 or 11 more. Well, what if you'd set your goal for 100 in the first place? You'd be much closer to all 10 of them being met every month for the next 10 months. See, that's the challenge that we have, is that many of us, we set a goal so that we can feel the win of reaching that goal. And when we miss that goal, we get depressed, we get delusional, we get disappointed. And we run the threat of falling into the quit cycle, of just giving up and conceding and then convincing ourselves I never wanted it in the first place. The reach says, I've got to know that it's like swimming to attain success. I can't just doggy paddle and hope that gets me there. I can't survival swim just to keep my head above water. That's not going to do it either. I've actually got to stretch my arm out there as far as I can, grab as much as I can, and pull it to me. When you're swimming, you're reaching out, you're cupping your hand, you're grabbing that water, you're pulling yourself forward in it. But you can't just do that with one arm and then relax. You can't do it with one arm and then wait. You can't do it with both arms and then wait. You've got to constantly be stretching and reaching as far as you can and pulling in that new opportunity. Reaching and stretching as far as you can, pulling in that new opportunity, putting in the effort. The sleepless nights, the heart, the sacrifice, the relationships. You've got to be willing to invest. You've got to reach. You've got to stretch beyond your imagination. I remember working for a guy. He said it to me several times. And it was a lesson to be learned as well as an observation of his style. And that was, he said, look, I don't care what the plan or the project is, whether it's the mission field or it's your business. Whatever the project is, it's going to take longer than you thought. It's going to cost more than you planned for. And it's going to be way harder than you expect. Whatever it is, that's true. Now, if you can come into life with that kind of perspective and realize that if I set a goal for 10 and I reach 50% of my goal, by the way, batting 500 means that you're hitting 50% of the pitches thrown at you. 50%. You know how many people have a 500 batting average? Not so many. Most of them are in the 3s and 4s when they're in D1 college. They're really good if they can hold 4s in the pros. 400, meaning 30 to 40% hit rate. What if you lived your life knowing that you were going to hit it about 40, 50%? If you were doing the best, if you were performing as the best among your class, your category, your sport, if you were that good and still only hitting 50%, you better have a high target. You better set yourself way out there. Stretch. If you think it's going to take 100 hours to build this new business, give it 1,000. If you think it's going to take $1 million to build this new business, set aside 10 million, target 10 million, find $10 million worth of investments. Find those people who want to partner with you to build it. Don't settle on the minimum it's going to take. Strive for 10 times whatever that number is. You'll find success in that constantly reaching. And here's your 6R, results. Now, this is a truth of self-perpetuation. Success begets success. You've got to be willing to look at every small success because the motivation inside you often doesn't rest in the failure. No, that's that's the hard part. It's really easy to fail and then quit. It's really hard to fail and see that as a success. So part of the way that you, and I don't want to say trick your mind, but motivate your mind, is to take a look at every small win and stack them up. Stack them up. Don't look at yourself and go, my goal was 10 sales this week and I only got 5. Look at your process and go, 5 times it worked. Now, those 5 sales, those 5 closes, they took me 35 phone calls or 75 phone calls or 500 phone calls. Well, if I got 5 out of 500, then in order to get 10, I need 1,000. So next week, I do 1,000. If I know that out of 500, I get 5 and out of 1,000, I could get 10, what if my goal was 100? Well, then that means I got to make 100,000 phone calls. I'll connect with 100,000 people in one way or another. I've got to get known to get business. See, all of these are the little tricks that you play in your head. You can't just say to yourself, well, that's an overwhelming number. You've got to look at it and go, but I've already won 5 times. And here's what I learned about those winnings. And here's what it looks like to reach, to stretch that same concept just a little further, just a little harder, make a few more phone calls, reach out to a few more people, send a few more emails, get into a few more networking opportunities. If sales is what you need to do, people are involved in that. You better get to know more people. You better get to be a better you so that people want to do business with you. People they know, like, and trust. Are you the kind of people they know, like, and trust? If you're busy about the business of growing yourself, a lot of the drama of life will fall away. It really will. If you're skiing behind a boat and you're thinking to yourself, I'm falling to the left, you're probably going to fall to the left. Or I'm falling to the right, you're probably going to fall to the right. Too far forward, too far backward. Wherever it is you're putting your attention, that's what you're going to get more of. Neuroscience tells us that. If you're focused on it, it's got your attention. What if you put your focus, your effort, and your attention on the small successes, the wins that you've already had, and you allow them to build momentum to go, I just got that sale. Now I got 2 of them. Now I got 3 of them, and they're still coming. And following along with the thing that made those sales close and repeating that action, that's what's going to bring more success. And it's going to bring success to your attitude, and it's going to bring success to your action, and it's going to prove that the effort that you're putting forward has a payoff, and it's a payoff that you want. And success begets success. It doesn't have to be massive success the first time. You don't have to walk in the door and close $1 billion sale. But you do have to be able to follow the process of what made you successful, the last thing, the last goal you achieved, the last close that you made, the last deal, the last book that you wrote. Ask yourself, what made that successful? What did I do differently that time than the other 79 times? And when you can nail that, you write into your plan and your process, that's helping you restate. Restate. You've realized it, you've resolved it, you've restated it. Here's what I learned from the last failure. Here's how I'm going to make this a success. Here's what I learned from the last success, and here's how I'm going to multiply that. That's what it takes to find success. 6 R's. It's a cycle. It never stops. Realize that you've missed that goal. Resolve yourself to move forward anyway. Press on harder, do more. Restate where you failed, where you missed, what you learned, what are the lessons, what did I win at, and what did I miss at, and then how do I change that? Restart. Just get busy. There's no time for excuses. If you got 5 out of the 10 sales, those other 5 are not going to come hunting you down. Go get them. Reach. No matter how hard you have done the work this time, you're not done yet. You're not done until you die. So go get it a little harder this next time. Reach a little further than you did last time. And keep reaching. Keep pulling success to you by making and redoubling that effort. 10x the effort. That's where the rule comes from. And then you'll find in your results that you have some successes, maybe some successes you've overlooked or minimized. Focus on the successes. What did I do right? How do I multiply that? What did I do wrong? How do I stop that? And then repeat the cycle. Realize where you've missed the goal. Resolve yourself to do it. Restate what you've learned and what you've succeeded at, what you failed at and what you've succeeded at. Restart, get at it again. Just get going again. Keep reaching and striving every single time, and you will see the results. Acknowledge the results, acknowledge the misses, and the cycle starts over. The 6 R's of self-motivation will drive you to success if you'll follow that process. And I'm going to tell you again, a lot of it rests in that divergence of the story. Will I say of myself when success seems to elude me, I never really wanted it in the first place? And begin the list of lies and excuses and laziness that follows that? Or will I say to myself, I missed the goal and here's why. And here's what I'm going to do differently because I'm not giving up until I get it or I'm dead. That's a question that only you can answer and only a story that only you can tell. I'm J. Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, where Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day.
Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom. I encourage you to go to StoryPowerAcademy.com and check it out. Look at the different classes, the different levels, the different things that are available. You can take a lot of them a la carte. But spend some time there and see if that's the kind of thing that would change the way you communicate as a leader, as a pastor, as a counselor, as a political leader. And if that will help you, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Again, only 10 people in the Elite Speakers. You will have to apply for that. But if you're a candidate, I'd love to have that conversation with you. I'm J. Loren Norris with Story Power Academy. I look forward to seeing you inside.